All right, it is 1:30, so we're going to get started. Derek, you're already on it. You're ahead of me. Okay. Welcome to this year's NNP Symposium. This is the third year that we've done a hybrid spring event where we have an audience here in Central States in person, as well as watching online live over Zoom. So if you are watching online, just a reminder, you'll be able to participate in the Q&A at the end. There's a button at the bottom of your screen that says Q&A. You can send in questions via text there. We will not share your name unless you specifically put it in the content of your question. And audience members here, of course, you'll be able to ask questions at the end by raising your hand, as usual. So the symposium itself is sponsored by the Eric P. Newman Numismatic Education Society, and then our physical space here at Central States is paid for by Heritage. So thank you to both of those organizations for making this possible. For this presentation, this is the second one of the symposium that is part of the Nebraska State Showcase. Last year, Central States started doing an annual state showcase where they highlight one of their member states. Last year was Iowa. This year is Nebraska. So we're joined by Derek Higgins, who is a native of Lincoln, Nebraska. He's been involved in numismatics since he was about 8 years old, and for the last 5 years has specialized in paper money. He is also on the board of governors of the Society of Paper Money Collectors. So that's great. And we'll be hearing about the National Banks of South Omaha, Nebraska. So Derek, I'll let you take it away. I'm going to go ahead and unmute yourself and make sure our speaker is working.
All righty. Can you hear me okay?
Beautiful. All right. Take it away.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction, Liana. Today, we're going to take a look at the national banks of South Omaha, Nebraska, and why they're important, why they even existed, and what makes South Omaha important in the history of Nebraska, and how you really can't talk about the national banks without talking about the Union Stock Yards of South Omaha. So, um, let's get started. Maybe. There we go. Okay. So just a little orienting here to begin with. This is the greater Omaha area as defined by Google. You can see the outline there. And the area that I'm going to be taking a look at is South Omaha. So the little bubble with Omaha's Henry Dorley Zoo on the right-hand side there, it's just below that. Here's a zoomed up image of that, and I've circled the area. So this red circle here, this is the heart and soul of South Omaha, where the stockyards and the business district and everything else was located for this area. The city of South Omaha came into existence because of the Union Stock Yards Company and its determination to make it a meatpacking center. With financial backing from Wyoming cattle baron Alexander Swan, who sought a livestock market closer than Chicago, a group of Omaha capitalists formed the Union Stock Yards Company and began to purchase land in south of Omaha. By April 1884, construction had begun on the stockyards, and the first cattle arrived in August of the same year. South Omaha's population was about 150 people when it was incorporated in 1885. But because of the establishment of the growth of the livestock trade, the population of the city grew exponentially to roughly 8,000 only 5 years later in 1890. The Union Stockyards Company realized that in order to compete with much larger livestock markets in Chicago and Kansas City, South Omaha stockyards needed to expand to incorporate packing plants. They began promoting South Omaha throughout the country. Their first order of business was to attract national meatpacking firms to the city. In May of 1885, by offering to build a $200,000 facility, the Union Stockyards Company convinced the George Hammond Packing Company to locate in South Omaha. With the arrival of the first national packing firm, the Union Stockyards Company found it necessary to build a livestock exchange building, of which all activities had previously been located in the farmhouse of Frederick Drexel. And this is an image here of the Drexel farm and the farmhouse. You can see the arrow pointing down there, 1883. So just imagine all this wide open space in South Omaha here. And this is where the livestock exchange and livestock yards were located. Um, the three-story brick building was built in 1885 and housed 40 offices, 25 commission firms, and a hotel. It was located on O Street, just east of the last exchange building. The following year saw the construction of the third exchange building. in 1886, a much larger brick building was attached to the west side of the previous exchange building, which remained part of the complex. This third exchange building was the first to bear the name on the main facade. The building had an arched entrance and three relief sculptures of the animals that made the building possible. A shorthorn was positioned directly above the keystone, and a sheep and a hog were on either side of it. And here is just a snip of the Sanborn image. If you're not familiar with these, the Sanborn maps located in the Library of Congress, great resource for research and just kind of pinpointing, where buildings were, kind of the layout of things. So this is the layout of the stockyards. This would have been about 1901, so a little bit later than this early history, but it shows you that where the exchange building and how it was laid out. And then we have a little bit closer view here. Um, and so um, this one here, you can see the buildings on the right. This is going to be the main area here. Um, let's see. So we can't talk about the national banks without talking about the bank that first came along, which was the Union Stock Yards Bank. And this one was located in the Exchange Building. It was founded by many of the people that also founded the Exchange Yards. And just to read a quick newspaper article from 1886, really celebrating the establishment of this bank, it says, quote, ever since the opening of the stockyards at South Omaha, those who have been doing business there have been under the great inconvenience of doing all their banking in Omaha. Under such an arrangement, every man doing business there was compelled to make a trip up to the city every night to make his deposits. And as it was impossible for them to leave the yards until after banking hours, it was also an inconvenience to the banks to keep open so late. At last, the stockyards people have taken a step in the right direction, and in a few days, South Omaha will have a bank of her own. So, with all of the growing industry, all of the large amounts of money, you needed something that was closer. So, this Union Stockyards Bank was established in the Exchange Building in 1886. But we get the establishment of the first national bank, the South Omaha National Bank, Charter 3611, organized and opened in late 1886, so a little bit later. This bank lasted until 1911 when it merged with another bank, National Bank. It only issued large size notes, and a little less than 100,000 of those, about 97,000 notes were issued. Now, this is a Sanborn image here of the bank's location at 2514 N Street. You can see just kind of tucked in the buildings there. And the really nice thing, I had no idea where this building, where the bank location was, and happened to find this article, which was talking about the bank that took over the building after the merger, the South Omaha Savings Bank, taking the old quarters for South Omaha. So that was a really nice find, and to be able to pinpoint that location. One interesting thing when they first opened this national bank, they tried to use the name the Union Stockyards National Bank, but as you can probably tell, that's pretty close to the Stockyards Bank, the original one that was founded in the Exchange Building. So they had to change the name and change it to South Omaha National Bank. And so that way it wasn't too close. Eventually, the succeeding bank will merge with this one, and so they'll eventually all become the same thing. But at that point, they wanted to be a little bit different. So this was a funny story that I found just a couple months after the bank opened. I'll just read the article here because it's pretty interesting. So an attack was made on the South Omaha National Bank last night about 12 o'clock. This was February of 1887. It's thought that the work was that of a drunken man rather than a robber. He first attempted to effect an entrance by breaking in the doors. When he failed in this, he mashed in the large plate glass window in the front part of the bank. The teller and clerk who sleep in the bank were aroused by the noise and attempted to scare the would-be burglar away by a pistol shot. After one shot was fired, a second attempt was made at the door. A second shot, a little closer than the first, had the desired effect of sending the man away. And the night watchman promptly arrested him afterwards. So, little perilous situation there to start off. the bank business there. This is just a representation. You can find these advertisements in the newspapers for most national banks, and these were no exception. On a daily basis, just advertising the success and how good they are with their banking business. So we get to the part that is the exciting part, the notes, the parts we collect as numismatists, as paper money collectors. So Charter 3611, they issued 1882 brownbacks, 1902 red seals, and 1902 datebacks. Only 5 notes are on the National Banknote Census. So it's a pretty scarce bank. If you're a Nebraska collector, if you're looking to find one of these, certainly not one that I've run across. I've seen one in person, but I do not have one in my collection. So these definitely, if they turn up, these are going to be a good one to have. Like I said, this bank will eventually merge with the Union Stock Yards National Bank in 1910, 1911. So I'm not going to go into that too much right now. I'll cover that when we get to the last iteration of the bank, the Stock Yards National Bank. But you can just see here the images on the top right is the old exchange building, bank building, and then the merged building is on the bottom here. So one particular banker profile that I want to highlight is A.U. Wyman, or Albert Uriah Wyman, born September 25th, 1833 in Cornwall, Canada, while his parents were residing there temporarily. His father, W. W. Wyman, was the founder and publisher of a newspaper at Ogdenburg, New York. When Mr. Wyman was a boy, his father went to Madison, Wisconsin, and established a newspaper there on which he and his brother William worked. At the age of 15, the two brothers were appointed state printers by the legislature of Wisconsin. In 1856, he went to Omaha, where he engaged in the banking business, being associated with Leroy Tuttle, who not long afterward became Assistant Treasurer of the United States. It was Mr. Tuttle's insistence that Mr. Wyman came from Omaha to Washington in 1860 to enter the treasurer's office, where he occupied successively the positions of assistant cashier, and assistant treasurer. He ultimately worked up, and in 1876, President Grant appointed him treasurer of the United States, a position he held until mid 1877. Because of ill health, he contemplated resigning, but stepped down and remained in the department as an assistant treasurer. He was again called to duty and appointed treasurer by President Arthur in 1883, serving until 1885. At this point, he returned to Omaha and became president of the Omaha Loan and Trust Company, vice president of the Omaha National Bank, and president of the South Omaha National Bank. Following the Panic of 1893, he returned to Washington, and in 1901, he was appointed to a position in the Office of the Auditor for the War Department, and he held that up until his death in 1915. If you collect federal currency, large size notes, you're probably well aware and familiar with his signature on those notes. I have an example there in the top left. And then the mock-up on the bottom left, that would be what I would like to believe a note would have looked like if he had signed it. There's no notes known, at least to my knowledge, that have his signature on them. So if one was to turn up, that would be really, really cool. Between 1887 and 1889, the Union Stock Yards Company brought the Armour Cudahy Packing Company and Swift and Company, two more very large national firms, to South Omaha. By 1892, these larger companies, along with several smaller local firms, combined to form the third largest meat packing center in the world, employing 5,000 people and paying over $2 million in wages each year. In order to maintain the integrity of the market and ensure the conformity of trade practices in the midst of astonishing growth, the Union Stock Yards organized the Omaha Livestock Exchange. This exchange eventually became the largest of its kind and was used as a model for the other markets around the country. Now, we're going to move on to the next national bank here. Along with Union Stock Yards National and the South Omaha National, the Packers National Bank was founded in July 1891 to deal with the growing financial activity of the industrial suburb of South Omaha. The new city of South Omaha developed along with the stockyards and grew rapidly. The business district began along N Street, but moved to the top of the hill along 24th by the turn of the century. As a packing house town, South Omaha attracted a wide variety of immigrants to Omaha, particularly after 1900. Omaha's cultural diversity benefited from the ethnic mix of people who came because of plentiful jobs for unskilled laborers in the packing houses. The city of South Omaha eventually grew to 26,000 before being annexed by Omaha in 1915. And these are just a couple advertisements in check for national banks, the Packers National Bank and the Stock Yards National Bank. So I thought those were pretty cool. So the Packers National Bank, Charter 4589, 1891, it succeeded the South Omaha branch of the Nebraska Savings Bank. And this bank lasted until 1934, when it basically changed charter numbers. Everything folded and then reopened again with the same information, just a different charter number, and started business again in the same spot. This was an earlier bank, so it only issued large size, and about 256,000 notes. The growth of Packers National Bank paralleled the growth of South Omaha and its livestock trade. The bank, founded in 1891, only 7 years after the stockyards opened. Financial institutions were somewhat less permanent in the Depression years of the 1890s, and the new Packers Bank opened in a building previously used by the Nebraska Savings and Loan Exchange Bank on the corner of 26th and N Streets. So here is a Sanborn image of 26th and N, and it's on the southeast corner. So it's going to be the kind of rectangular pink colored building there on that the southeast corner of that intersection. And here is a zoomed in image of that, kind of cut off a little bit, but that would have been the first bank offices for that. Charter 4589, once again, issued many types of notes: 1882 brownbacks, datebacks, and then 1902 red seals, datebacks, and plainbacks. 29 notes on the national banknote census. And Packers National Bank had initial ties with the meat industry, as evidenced by its officers. And you can see the bank officer pairs there. A.C. Foster, president in 1892, was the general manager of the Swift meatpacking plant. E.A. Cudahy, head of Cudahy Meatpacking, was on the board of directors, and Vice President W.N. Babcock was also general manager of the Union Stock Yards Railroad Company. Such interlocking involvement with stockyards men was not unusual at this time. By 1893, however, John F. Code became the president of the bank and established the Code family in South Omaha banking for the next 75 years. John was a part of the generation of businessmen who came to Nebraska Territory in the 1860s to make a fortune in the West. Like William A. Paxton and other frontiersmen, Code worked as a freighter and then as a cattle rancher in Wyoming before selling his ranch and becoming an Omaha banker. The second generation of Codes remained active in the bank and achieved prominence in business and civic affairs. J.F. Code Jr. Had begun as a messenger and then a cashier at the Packers Bank before succeeding his father as president in 1912. Another brother, William J. Code, was a vice president at the bank, and a third brother, Arthur L. Code, joined the bank in 1917. Arthur also worked his way up at the bank and in 1939 succeeded his brother as president. Arthur Code's presidency from 1938 to 1968 saw the bank through the changes that occurred in South Omaha when the large meatpacking firms closed in the 1960s. As South Omaha expanded, the business district changed from its N Street focus to the 24th Street. Packers National Bank followed this movement and constructed its new building on the northeast corner of 24th and O in 1907. So here's the intersection of 24th and O. This would have been 1901. You can see there's a nice open blank area in the northeast corner there. That's where the bank building will eventually be built. And this is that new bank building in 1907. These are obviously modern pictures of the bank. This is the, of all the bank buildings, this is the only one still extant. You can see lots of decorative design work there. Architecturally, the Packers National Bank building is significant as a work of the eminent Nebraska architect Thomas Rogers Kimball, and as an example of the second Renaissance revival style in Omaha. Kimball is noted for his many important works in Omaha, including St. Cecilia's Cathedral, the Burlington headquarters building, the former Omaha Public Library, and the now extant Hotel Fontenelle. With his partner, C. Howard Walker, Kimball was also architect in chief of the Trans Mississippi and International Exposition held in Omaha in 1898. And a picture of the fairgrounds exposition grounds is on the left side there. So these are just some more images of notes for the Packers National Bank. A little bit more available than the previous one discussed, but always a very popular one just because of the title. And lots of collectors, they will collect either by livestock industry or they like to collect by job. So Packers certainly falls into that category. Eventually, the bank did close its affairs in 1934, and then, like I said, opened up immediately thereafter. Same people, same building, pretty much same everything. What I did find was a lot of their advertising and a lot of the stories after this change really focus around mortgage lending and new homes, and really taking advantage of all of the laws that were being passed during the Great Depression to help people get into homes and help them keep their homes. So they did a whole bunch in home lending after that. The next bank is the Union Stock Yards National Bank. This is Charter 4632. This one organized in 1891, and this is going to take over for the first bank we talked about. So the Union Stock Yards Bank in the Exchange building there, it's going to have this little rectangular building here next to the stock exchange. This one will last until 1911 when it merges with South Omaha National Bank. This one did not issue a ton of notes, a little over 58,000 only in large size. So definitely one that is a little bit scarcer and a little bit more desired as far as national bank notes go. And these are just some newspaper clippings about the establishment of the bank and taking over for that previous bank. So what started out as not a national bank eventually did get to the point of being one. This is a common postcard that you'll find if you're collecting South Omaha and anything to do with the stockyards. Not necessarily this postcard per se, but this view and this angle is just about the most popular one that you'll see for postcards. You can probably find a couple dozen different versions of this, and this is just a nice example of that Union Stockyards National Bank building there on the right side. So 4632 only issued a couple types of notes, 1882 brownbacks and 1882 datebacks. On the National Banknote Census, there are no datebacks listed, so everything is are 1882 brownbacks. Only 9 notes listed on the census there. These two examples are from the Jerome Walton collection. And one particular banker that I do want to highlight is the president, 1897 to 1906, John Andrew Creighton. If it sounds familiar, yes, you are probably thinking about the Creighton associated with Nebraska. Younger brother of Edward Creighton, John was responsible for a variety of institutions throughout the city of Omaha. Born in Ohio, Creighton's first job was working for his brother Edward, installing a telegraph line from Cleveland to Toledo. In 1856, he came to Omaha as a clerk with a local merchant, and in 1860, he took 2 jobs moving cattle and freight from Omaha to Denver. Around that same period, Edward accepted a contract installing 700 miles of the Pacific Telegraph, the first transcontinental telegraph in the United States. John was hired as the superintendent of the construction. In the early 1860s, Creighton traveled to Montana to mine gold, eventually installing a telegraph line from Salt Lake City to Helena, Montana. In 1868, he returned to Omaha permanently, where he established a grocery business in Jobbers Canyon. He also married Sarah Emily Wareham, the sister of Mary Lucretia Creighton, who was married to John's brother Edward. When Edward died suddenly in 1874, Mary became committed to his notion of creating a free college in Nebraska. She died in 1876, however, leaving a considerable amount of money along with strict instructions for the foundation of the college in her husband's honor. John, his cousin James, and Herman Kuntz, a banker and family friend, were the executors of Edward's will, and acting in this capacity, they purchased the present site of the university and proceeded to erect what is now called Creighton Hall. An early photo is pictured there at left. John's wife, Sarah, died in 1888, but before her death, she bequeathed a business block near downtown Omaha to the yet to be named Creighton College. By the early 1890s, he was attributed to holding more of the valuable real estate of the city of Omaha than any other individual. He owned a railroad company, was a large stockholder in the Omaha Cable Tramway Company, and he was heavily invested in the South Omaha Syndicate, responsible for building up much of that area. He was also vice president of First National Bank of Omaha. Today, Creighton University in Omaha is viewed as being named in honor of the entire Creighton family, particularly John and Edward, as well as their wives, Sarah and Emily. So, like I said, this bank is going to merge with South Omaha National, and I'll cover the merger when we get to that merged bank later on. The success of the Omaha Livestock Exchange and 10 slaughtering and packing plants continued to bring jobs and capital into South Omaha. In 1910, South Omaha packing houses slaughtered 50,000 head of livestock each day, while commission firms traded another 20,000 in the stockyards. In 1916, South Omaha became the second largest livestock market in the United States, receiving livestock from 20 states and territories transported to Omaha on the nation's 10 largest railroads. With the addition of the Skinner Packing Company in 1920, the South Omaha stockyards and packing plants employed over 13,000 people and had a combined annual payroll of nearly $15 million. So we come to our third national bank, the Livestock National Bank, Charter 8949. 1907, when this bank was organized and opened. This is one that did survive past the note issuing period in 1935. It was also chartered late enough that it issued both large and small size notes. So a little bit of, I guess, intrigue I discovered with the building of and renovating of the building that this bank was going to be located in. The first article there is from July of 1907, and there's a lot of optimism as far as the bank getting really everything done and ready to transact by October 1. But less than a month later, we've run into some hiccups. There's somebody else that's already in the building that the bank purchased. His name is John Riches, and he's a saloon owner. And he had signed a lease that ran through April of 1908. So we see a bit of conflict here. So the bank is trying to get the building renovated, get everything ready to go, be open as quickly as possible. You have this saloon owner that is holding out in the building, not giving in. Eventually, this case makes it all the way to the Nebraska Supreme Court, and they rule in favor of the saloon owner, at least temporarily, to just basically the bank couldn't come in and push him out immediately. Something ended up getting worked out. I was not able to find exactly the details of it, but by October, he seems to be out. Not sure if he was relocated or closed down, but he's out of the building, and they're working feverishly to get this building finished so they can get the bank going, which doesn't happen until December. So optimistic for October, ran into the hiccup, and then ended up opening up in 1907. Let's see here. And this is the building that they worked on and that they finished, corner of 24th and N Street. You can see a little bit of a hearkening to the Exchange building, kind of that turret corner and just sort of that look, maybe trying to play off of the Exchange building and that as well. And then this is a postcard image of the inside, so the teller counters and offices and everything. So a lot of work went in a very short amount of time. So this National Bank, we are past 1882s. We're into 1902 red seals, date backs, and plain backs. And then small size, finally, 1929 type 1 and type 2 10s and 20s. This one is a bank that's fairly available, at least in small size. 24 large size and 125 small size are on the National Banknote census. And One particular name I want to highlight is Richard L. Van Zant. He was president of the bank for a few years. Born in 1871 in Fort Worth, Texas, he graduated from Fort Worth High School and attended Texas A&M, where he earned a Bachelor of Science degree in civil engineering in 1890. After graduation, he worked at Fort Worth National Bank until 1900, when he accepted a position in the Philippines working for the United States Treasury Department. In 1904, he resigned from this post and became receiver of Farmers National Bank in Henrietta, Texas. From 1905 to 1914, he served as a national bank examiner in Texas, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Arkansas. He then helped organize the 11th District of the Federal Reserve System in Texas and served as deputy governor from 1914 to 1915. Following the resignation of the first governor of the Dallas Fed, Oscar Wells, Van Zant was elected governor in 1915. He served for 7 years before being defeated by B.A. McKinney in 1922. In 1923, he became president of the Livestock National Bank in Omaha, Nebraska, and held that position until 1927, when he became the receiver of the First National Bank in St. Augustine, Florida. In 1929, he returned to Texas and worked for the Texas National Bank in Fort Worth from 1930 until 1936, and passed in 1940. Here's just a couple more images of national banknotes of the Livestock National Bank. The coin token featured here. That's a fun little heads tails coin that you can pick up. It's associated with the Livestock National Bank. I want to particularly highlight the note at the top left, that Type 1 10. That is the only note for any of the banks that I'm going to cover in my collection. I just haven't gotten around to adding too many of those. This one I added fairly recently, and so that one is pretty special to me. So finally, we get to the merger. We get to this consolidation of two of the most important institutions up to this point, into the Stock Yards National Bank. This is Charter 9908. Organized and chartered in 1910. It opened January of 1911, and this combined the South Omaha National Bank and the Union Stock Yards National Bank. It issued both large and small size notes. Many more large size than small size. You can see about 227,000-ish for large size and 74,000 small size. And a lot of what sort of the progress of the merger hinged on finishing the building. That little rectangular building next to the Exchange building, that was where the Union Stock Yards National Bank was located. That's where they decided on the combining of everything, that they were going to relocate to there, but it had to be bigger, and it had to be able to handle all of the banking activity that would then be happening from the combination of these two entities. So you can see on the left here the early Sanborn image, 1901, of the small rectangular building there. And then on the right side here, this is one from 1962. And so this is after they've built the new Exchange building and the bank has moved to that. So the Journal stockman took over the building and did an addition there on the bottom left side, that little rectangle. And the Journal Stockman was the newspaper that was printed daily at the stockyards. And so you can see the amount of work and the amount of extension that was put onto the back end of that building. I really liked this newspaper article, 1910, World Herald. Quote, "The new edition of the bank building at the stockyards is practically completed and will be ready for occupancy in a short time now. The interior work is very fine. It will be one of the finest bank buildings in the state as far as the interior is considered, at least. The day fixed for the merger of the two banks is January 3rd. On that day, the South Omaha National Bank and the Union Stock Yards National Bank will combine and begin doing business under the new name of the Stock Yards National Bank of South Omaha. H.C. Bostwick, now of the South Omaha National, will be the president of the new institution. Mr. Bostwick has been at the head of South Omaha National for a number of years and is well known in the city." And this I thought was pretty interesting. This is an image, 1924. So they're building the viaduct. So they're going to move O Street basically across the livestock pens and everything. They're going to raise everything up. And what's really nice about these early images is you can zoom in and you can get a really good, clear image of the buildings and everything else in the background. So this was a nice kind of one of the last probably images of the bank in this building prior to the building of the new exchange building in 1925, 26. So types of notes issued for the Stockyards National Bank: 1902 date backs, 1902 plain backs, and 1929 type 1 and 2 in the small size. There are about 40 large size and 115 small size on the National Banknote Census. So another one that is a little more available for folks that are wanting to collect South Omaha or anything Stockyards related. So that one, that's another popular title as well. These are just some more note images here for examples of Stockyards National Bank, both large and small size. And one particular banker that stood out and really was instrumental in a couple of different South Omaha national banks was Henry Clay, or H.C. Bostwick. He spent his whole life in Omaha. He was integral in running both institutions, the South Omaha and the Stockyards National. But one thing that really stood out in looking at his profile was this Sturgis, South Dakota Commercial National Bank president, 1903 to 1915. I thought, that's really interesting. So I had to look at that a little bit deeper. And sure enough, found some newspaper articles that highlighted that he was going to be the president, coming from South Omaha for the foundation of this bank. And it seems like it was probably one that was really in with livestock and along those lines. So he would have been a natural person to enlist in helping start this institution. This is an example of the Commercial National Bank of Sturgis notes. There are not too many. I think there's maybe single digits on the National Banknote Census. You'll notice on the bottom right, on the president's signature, where we would have seen H.C. Bostwick's signature there, we actually have the vice president, Edward Galvin. And it's probably because he was not there hardly ever in Sturgis, South Dakota, to sign notes. So the next person in line would have been the one to do that. By the 1920s, South Omaha Stockyards had outgrown the 1885 Livestock Exchange Building, and with their prosperity, wanted a landmark building to represent the business. In November 1924, ground was broken for the new building, beginning construction that would not end until May 1926. The impressive new exchange building was a symbol of the continued growth of the livestock industry and became the hub for most of South Omaha activity. The building is the manifestation of the success of the industry that continued to prosper through the 30s despite the financial problems of the Great Depression. This here is the interior shots of the Stockyards National Bank location. So it would have been located, I believe, second floor, right side of the exchange building. So this is them putting in all of the flooring, the teller counters, the cages, everything else in preparation for them to move from that rectangular building next to it into the new big stock exchange building. And this is just a view looking the opposite direction here. In 1934, Wilson and Company decided to move to Omaha to lease an older packing plant and began operations. At this time, Wilson owned packing houses around the world. Their presence made Omaha the only site in the country with the four big packing houses: Armour, Cudahy, Swift, and Wilson. These four houses would lead Omaha to the position of the world's largest meatpacking center, and its sheer physical size continued to dominate South Omaha. By 1948, 100 acres of land was used for pens, shed, and scale houses necessary to care for the livestock. The year 1951 saw the stockyards on the verge of beating their longtime rivals, Chicago, in sales, and the business was so large that the profits from manure alone rivaled the value of the Florida citrus crop that year. In 1955, the South Omaha Stock Yards finally reached the goal that they had been working toward for 65 years. Omaha had grown into the largest stockyard and meat processing center in the country. In all, the stockyards traded and processed more than $500 million in livestock each year. And by 1957, the livestock industry employed half of Omaha's workforce. But as things go up, they must also come down. The livestock industry reached its peak during the late 1950s. Changes in marketing methods led to a decline in the need for a central market, and decentralized feedlots and packing plants began to replace those in South Omaha. In 1967 and 68, three of the largest packing companies closed. Finally, in 1976, the last major packing house closed, signaling the end of the great era of the South Omaha stockyards. The stockyards did eventually continue on right up until the mid to late 1990s, closing in 1999. The city of Omaha purchased everything of the stockyards, land, buildings, all that. And prior to demolishing all of the buildings and all of the pens, everything else, all the infrastructure except for the exchange building, there was a lot of really high quality photographs taken documenting everything at the stockyards. I believe these are on the Library of Congress as well, either that or Nebraska State Historical Society. But this was really neat to find, especially these photos documenting the old Union Stock Yards National Bank building that became the Journal Stockman building. So these are just some images of the building before it was torn down. It was in a pretty bad state of disrepair at that point, and um, most of the inside was not bank related at all anymore. There were still some vestiges, as you can see by these interior shots. There's still a little bit of that bank charm that probably was in there, but it met the wrecking ball not too much longer after this. So let's look at the present day locations for where these banks were located. Um, this is the South Omaha National Bank. This location is currently under a freeway in Omaha, the John F. Kennedy Expressway. There, you can see all of that was removed to build the road through there. The Packers National Bank, this, like I said, is the only building that's still extant of dedicated bank buildings. This bank was eventually acquired by another bank, as banks do, and it was eventually acquired by Wells Fargo. It had moved out of this building, I believe, in the 1970s. So it hasn't been a bank for a long, long time, but it still exists today. The Stockyards National Bank eventually became a subsidiary of Northwestern National Bank, or Northwest Bancorp, and that company merged with Wells Fargo, taking over the Wells Fargo name and history. You can see the Stockyards building here on the left, and then I tried to approximate with the other circle about where that rectangular building was. It's probably not exactly, but it's close enough. And the Livestock National Bank. This bank merged with the Omaha National Bank in 1954. So lasted past the note issuing era for national banks, but was a relatively early merger. Through a series of mergers and acquisitions, Omaha National eventually became part of U.S. Bank. So, like banks do, they merge, they acquire, they change names, and so this one eventually ended up in a larger organization as well. And then just to give you an idea of the overall area of the Omaha Stockyards, this is just modern day, map of the Stockyards area and what was there. If you look on the bottom, Q Street, and then 36th on the left side running vertically, and then L Street at the top running horizontally. That would be the outline of the old Union Stockyards. So all of that was full of pens and packing houses and all of that other infrastructure in there. So now it's all, the only real vestige left is probably some other buildings surrounding that, and then the livestock exchange building sort of in the upper right area there. And so finally, I just want to thank everybody else that has helped me on my journey with collecting Nebraska, specifically mentoring Andy Timmerman, Matt Hansen, John Beach, Jim McKee, Mark Gregson, and Cody Regenetter, and then the late Jerome Walton. While I never got to meet Jerome, with him writing the book on Nebraska National Bank notes and really building up the collection that he did, it really puts those collectors of Nebraska in a really great position with lots and lots of information. So thank you all for listening to my talk.
All righty, then we will jump into the Q&A. I'm going to have you go ahead and stop your screen share. So there should be a red button at the top of your screen that says stop share. We'll get that pulled down. Beautiful. Okay, everyone in the room, I'm sorry, you have to see my face twice. Nothing we can do about it. Okay, so we're going to open it up for questions. If you're on Zoom, just click Q&A at the bottom of your screen and you can send them in over text. Otherwise, do we have any questions in the room? I'm not seeing any hands. Okay. Okay. Have we gotten any online, or should I talk for a minute? All right, I'll talk for a minute and give everyone a chance to type them in. If we don't have any, by the time I'm done with my spiel, we'll all go about our day. So all of the presentations from the NNP Symposium this week are being recorded, and those recordings will be available online in about 2 weeks. So if you want to know when they're available and get an email letting you know that they're up, you're welcome to sign up for our email list. There's a place on the nnpsymposium.org homepage you can sign up. Or if you're here in person, there's a piece of paper back there by the plastic cups that you're welcome to add your email to, and we'll get you added to that list. You can also just take a look at our website, and there will be a little banner in black at the very top when those recordings are posted announcing it. Right now, it just says that the schedule is available for this year. So that's what I've got. Do we have any questions from online?
No questions. I'll just make one comment. Andrew Pollack is working on statistical data for national banks. I don't know if he's covered any of the Nebraska ones yet, but that will be a good source of information if it's not already.
Well, Derek, do you want to tell people how you got started collecting banknotes?
Sure, John, I'd be happy to.
That's an interesting story.
As John asked, I originally from Lincoln, Nebraska. I have been patronizing the coinery since I was about 7 or 8, and there are many locations. And I did a lot of collecting with both coins and paper money, just kind of casually amongst a lot of different things. I'm really big into history, so that was always a huge draw for me. And so I did both kind of casually. At about 2011, my family's home burned down, and so I lost my whole coin collection. But I had, for some strange reason, which I guess you could call divine, I had my whole book of paper money with me at college at that point, and so that was really the only thing left. So I built up from there, focused more on that for a number of years, and then really probably a year or two before COVID, kind of got really more into especially small size national or small size U.S. currency, and then national banknotes and everything, and then really just kind of fell in love with it, and have that's been my passion ever since. So yes, as you mentioned, I'm on the board of governors for the Society of Paper Money Collectors. Anybody that's interested in national banknotes, 100%, that's the first place you need to go is the website, spmc.org. Lots and lots and lots of good information, and it's available. There's some that's behind the paywall of membership in SPMC, and there's some that's not. So even the casual collector can go search on there and get, a lot of basic information on national banks if they have something, or, somebody asks a question, if you're digging through a safe deposit box and you find something, like there's a lot of resources out there that you don't necessarily have to pay for. If you are really into national banknotes, the National Banknote Census, which is run by Dr. Andrew Shiva, and the National Currency Foundation. It's $100 a year, but it's the best $100 you'll ever spend as far as being able to access data and all of that information on a deeper level if you're truly passionate about national banknotes.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions?
Nothing online.
Nope. All right, then that's going to wrap us up for this one. Derek, thank you so much for taking the time out to present. I know Mitch is very grateful for all of the Nebraska presenters who are willing to participate. So thank you. Next presentation will be Dennis Tucker starting at 3 o'clock, talking about how U.S. coins are designed. And if you are just following along for the Nebraska presentations, the next one in that series will be tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. with Mark Engler speaking about Nebraska's America the Beautiful Quarter. So that's it for this one. Thank you all for coming.